Hey folks, here we are for Game 4 with the Arcanis the Omnipotent Paradox Engine Storm deck. And we're playing against a lot of commanders here. We have Yidris, Multani, which is a very interesting one. You sometimes see this one. Hamura, which you very rarely see this one. Decisions were made in this game. This was actually a very interesting game. I perhaps made some poor choices, and my opponent capitalized on that for sure. But we'll see as the game transpires where I misplayed and where I maybe could have played a little better. So the Yidris player is on the play here. Decides to keep their hand, plays a forest, taps it, and passes. The Multani player plays a Mana Vault, which is a pretty fast start. Essentially, this reduces the cost in half of their commander, so pretty good. I draw Mystical Tutor, and I play my own Mana Vault. Yidris player casts Gitaxian Probe, looks at my hand, says, "That's a hand." And I was like, "Indeed it is. A hand of magic cards." So Multani plays a Sylvan Library and passes the turn. And this player, after playing the Gitaxian Probe, plays Lightning Greaves and passes the turn. And this player plays a land, taps it, passes. So here is where I make the first mistake, or the biggest mistake in the game, I think. I know that he has enough mana to cast Multani next turn. I have a Remand, so I could buy time, and it would tap the Mana Vault, so it would buy a lot of time before that person comes down. I decided I'm going to go ahead and develop my mana here. And I also could have done this off the Mana Vault, but that's pretty not good either, because then I'm taking away 3 colorless mana on my next turn to have 1 essentially colorless, because nobody has blue here except for Yidris, which has not played one yet. So Fellwar Stone is looking like a colorless land, or colorless mana producer. But I definitely should not have just played that Fellwar Stone there. That was just a mistake. I wanted to develop. One of the key functions of this deck and the goals in the early game is to develop as early as possible and get a bunch in play. But it's likely this person has a forest in hand, and it's likely that person will cast their commander. The reason why this is bad for me is because it has Shroud. I have very limited ways of dealing with this card. I also don't have very many creatures. I could chump with Arcanis, but you never want to do that. And I don't run very many creatures in this deck, period. So I need something like a Trinket Mage in order to block this thing. Look at it. It's 25-25. It's huge. So that was not correct, to just, take the shields down and remand so that I can get a Fellwar Stone in play. It just was not correct. I could have waited on the Fellwar Stone. 1 turn, I would have remand up with it. So I cast it off of 2 islands, have 1 island untapped. This person plays a Stormfleet Swashbuckler. Does not have the City's Blessing yet, but perhaps will at some point. So here I decide that I'm just going to pass the turn. I think I tapped thinking about fabricating for something, but I ultimately decided and just gambling that this person wasn't going to hit me, or potentially trying to exhaust some of the resources in my hand so I could get this below power 21, so that it will not deal 21 points of commander damage to me. I just have a feeling that he's going to attack me with it. So I decide that I pass with my mana up. This person does not play anything, which is unfortunate. I really wanted this person to play some cards so that we could reduce the power and toughness on Multani here. And this person looks with their library. He may or may not have drawn a few cards with it. And then attacks me, of course. And this is where it's just really not looking good for me. This is like okay, but generally speaking, Cyclonic Rift can do better than this. So this is not how I want to be burning my Cyclonic Rift. One plus side, as far as I can see, is that the Mana Vault is tapped, and I will have Remand up next turn. So no matter what the play is this turn, even if he follows up with some kind of ramp or something to get Multani out next turn, I'm still going to be fine here. I mean, he could replay the Mana Vault and have it ready next turn, but I'll have Remand then. So this seems okay. Then I just basically that earlier misplay with the Fellwar Stone is really catching up to me here, because what he does here is awful for me. Plays Seed Time. Cast this spell only during your turn. Take an extra turn after this one if an opponent casts a blue spell this turn. Alright, so I cast a blue spell, so he gets to take a 2 mana Time Warp. yeah, time warp or time walk is banned in this format for obvious reasons, and apparently you only get a green, you only get a time walk if you're green or whatever. So he gets to do this, replays the mana vault, and now can replay Multani. It was as if my Cyclonic Rift didn't even do anything, which is the worst case scenario. I thought for sure after I had, Cyclonic Rifted it, that it was going to be another turn before I had to deal with it again. But this person plays Multani, activates their Mossworks Bridge, and gets Rampaging Balos in play. So setting up quite the clock over there. And I don't quite know how I'm supposed to get out of this. He's already expressed his intent to kill me first, so I have to do something about that on my next turn, or else I'm just dead. And this player plays Markov Blademaster. Double strike, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So it's pretty cool. One little small thing with this, I don't really know much about this card. I haven't heard of it really before, but you can attack, you get your first strike, then you get the extra counter, then you do your double strike. So you get to go ahead and get an extra point of damage on that second hit because of his ability, which is pretty cool. So I don't pay for mana vault, because if I do, I'm just dead. I draw an island, and I gave some thought to fabricating for Walking Atlas in order to have a chump blocker for this giant threat. But I realized that wasn't a winning line of play, and there wasn't very many winning lines of play. I ultimately decided that I just want to fabricate for Chrome Mox so I can get the most amount of cards out of my hand. This is at 21, and I have not taken any commander damage from this guy. So if things stay exactly how they are, then I can Mystical Tutor and reduce the power and toughness to 20, so I don't just die, which that's the plan right now. And I said something to this player. I was like, please play some spells, play spells out of your hand so that we don't all die to this thing. And he'd been missing land drops for the past several turns and just decided to go ahead and pack it in. Which I don't want it to happen this way. I did want Multani to get smaller, but I did not want it to happen that way. This guy conceding hurt his game plan pretty strongly. But as things were, I think I still was going to be able to get out of it by doing the Mystical Tutor thing, and then hopefully having a strong play next turn. But the Yidris player is down for the count, which is good for me. But like I said, I don't want that to happen like this. The Multani player decides to, of course, attack me for 20 points of damage, which again is fine. I know that I'm the largest threat. I knew it was likely that he was going to attack me first to begin with. The only thing that I'm even slightly salty about is the seed time. This card is insane. You green mages out there, you should be running this if you play in a competitive environment. Everyone plays blue. It's an extra turn spell. They have to counter something of yours, essentially, or bounce something during your turn in order for you to use it. But and also, this is a meta or playgroup dependent thing. He definitely got me here, I gotcha. But if I was aware that this card was in his deck, he played in my playgroup, then I would play around it the best I can. Unfortunately, in that situation, I couldn't play around that even if I knew about it. So seed time looking pretty good there. Here I decided to Mystical Tutor. The turn order is all weird on this game. It's been messing up on MTGO. This is not the order in which the players were whenever we were playing the game. This guy was actually here, and this guy was here. So I thought it was his end step that I wanted to do this at. So I did this a little early. And I thought about what I wanted to get with this Mystical Tutor. So I definitely felt like I had to just take a gamble here. So one of the options was Cryptic Command, which is a guaranteed way to tap his team down and draw an additional card next turn. That's something I could do to guaranteed prevent my death from occurring. The other option was Time Spiral, which allows me to tap 4 lands and then tap these 2 artifacts to cast it, and then I untap 4 lands. So I get a fresh new hand of 7, and I have 4 lands available to me. And that's not guaranteed at all. I have to have a very spectacular time spiral in order to get out of this, but that's where I'm at right now. The only way for me to win is to get lucky. I could do the Cryptic Command thing, but the only ways I have to continue to do this in my deck are Cryptic Command and Turnabout. So I can tap down his creatures with Turnabout. I can tap down his creatures with Cryptic Command. The Cyclonic Rift is in the graveyard, and I'm not going to have enough time to deploy something like an Archaeomancer and get back the Cyclonic Rift. So I have very, very limited ways of getting out of this, and I decide, you have to go for the gamble here. If I just get the cryptic command, I'm buying time. That's all I'm getting, and not very much time. So I decide that I'm going to get the time spiral here. This player plays a Geosurge, which is a pretty interesting spell. Ramps you by 2, but by 3, but can only be used on artifact or creature spells. And this player saw that I got the time spiral going, so decides to go ahead and play as many spells as they can. Plays their commander, plays PNLR, and plays this thing. Back out again. This time he has the City's Blessing, so double strike on this guy. And attacks Multani. I'm assuming because the way he sees this game playing out is that this person is going to kill me, and he needs to be able to kill this person afterwards if he wants any chance of surviving past these giant creatures. So, Multani did get smaller when that guy quit, but he's at 9 right now. And I'm at 14, which means that I will take over 21 points of commander damage if I'm hit with this guy one more time. So I had to take the line that I said, so here goes. Time spiral. And it's going to have to be a good one. And this is probably my top 3 time spirals I've ever cast. This time spiral was sick. It was almost the perfect sequence of cards. I can't think of anything much better than this. So this hand is obviously insane. I draw a land, I play it. I play Paradox Engine. I play Mox Opal. So now I have tons of mana. Play Lotus Petal. And importantly here, I have 2 blue artifact sources of mana. And that's going to come up here in a second. So I Cyclonic Rift again. Then I cast Arcanis. And I realize here, while I'm doing this, that I can capsize with buyback as many times as I want. So definitely just going to go ahead and do that. I kind of feel bad about doing this stuff online and because it's tedious. And on paper as well, because generally speaking, people just don't want to lose this way. But after everything that happened in this game and how I was, completely destroyed by Multani like the entire time, I feel it is acceptable to keep him off of doing that ever again. And while I was doing this, this player conceded click here while I'm going through the motions here. And I probably wasn't even going to bounce his board. I may have bounced a threat that was going to kill me as it came out on his next turn. And, of course, it makes sense to scoop there, I guess. Like, he thinks either A, I'm going to bounce all of his permanents right now, or B, I'm going to prevent him from taking any more meaningful game actions that would kill me. And the second part was true, so it makes sense to concede there, but I was not going to bounce all of his lands. I am going to bounce this guy's lands, however, until he has no lands left in play, and then I'll probably bounce every spell that he plays after that, or Cryptic Command it, if I can. So I was getting ready to bounce his last land, and he goes ahead and packs it in, which completely makes sense. But hopefully you learned what not to do. Sometimes it feels right to just go ahead and get on the board early, get all your fast artifact mana out and play as quickly as possible. But sometimes, depending on the board state, it can come back to bite you. And it was an on-board trick. Like, I saw that he had Mana Vault. I saw that all he needs is a land drop, and he can play Multani. It's likely that he'll be able to do so, especially with a Sylvan Library. So I made my decisions, and they were just not the correct decisions, and it almost cost me the game. I was able to get out of it because my deck's awesome, but that was it for Game 4.